Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is the big man Boisterous coming to you with some mini-game madness from the Tal'Darim altar. Up here in the top right-hand corner, we have Arlyne as the blue Zerg, and down here in the bottom right, we have Alejandro as the red Protoss. As this game starts off, we have Arlyne saying good luck, have fun, dropping the manner, and as per usual, actually, the Protoss player is not actually mannering. I don't know why every Protoss player I cast does that. That's weird. As this game starts up, I'm just going to really quickly explain what minigame madness is. And minigame madness is basically when I'm going to take some of the shorter games that get sent into me, and I'm going to use those for a day instead of doing like a regular, 20-minute long game or 30-minute long game. I'm probably going to do 3 or 4 7 to 12-minute long games so that, everybody that sends me in those shorter replays that are pretty awesome can get their replays spotted. As this game started off, we see Arlyne went for kind of a weird extractor trick where he didn't get his Overlord really as soon as he possibly could after he did that. I don't know what strategy he's going to be going for. It looks like he's droning up pretty hard and not going for an extractor. So I expect to see probably a 15 hatch out of him. Yeah, and there's the 15th drone coming up with no spawning pool or no gas, so I'm guessing that that's going to be a 15 hatch. It does look like Alejandro is preparing for a Forge Fast Expand. I'm guessing he's going to drop a Forge to wall this off and then maybe one cannon to protect. Arlyne is really just going for a standard 15 hatch with the hatchery starting right now, and it does look like Alejandro is going to get the scout out right there, but I also believe that Arlyne is going to get the scout on this forge and know exactly what's going on, and he should be able to know that he can take a fast third if he really wants to. Neither player is going for any sort of gas play, which actually surprises me out of Arlyne. Typically, even if you go for this kind of 15 hatch, unless you're playing kind of the hardcore Spanishiwa style, the Ice Fisher build, usually you would get at least one extractor so that you can get Zergling speed, because Zergling speed is really useful in holding off 4 to 6 gates. And, on a 2-base, Protoss can easily get 6 gates. It does look like Alejandro is afraid of a 2-base timing push this early. That surprises me. I doubt that the Zerg would switch right into cheese after this. He wouldn't cancel his hatchery and just go right for a cheese. That would kind of be a major commitment. Plus the fact is that he wouldn't have speedlings. So it'd be very easy to get that cannon wall off the cannons and, just like a 4-gateway wall. In time. It does look like Alejandro is going for a Nexus after that first cannon, which is again something that I don't agree with, just because this Nexus is going to be so far behind this hatchery, and this hatchery is already up. It's been up for a little while. The Queen's coming out for it, and this Nexus just went down. He's going for a second cannon. I feel this is a bit of an overcommitment this early in the game. And I actually think he's about to get supply blocked, because I don't see another pylon coming up anywhere. Unless he's just waiting on that Nexus to provide the next batch of supply, and he's actually heavily supply blocked right now. He's kind of just... Oh, there goes the pylon, finally. That's a really, really late pylon for such a kind of heavy supply blocking, actually. And he chrono boosted his Nexus so that the probes could be queued up faster. It does look like Arlyne is playing definitely a lot cleaner. Than his Protoss opponent. He is not going for any type of layer tech or anything yet, though, which surprises me. I mean, usually if I see somebody go for this, usually when I go for this kind of 2-base play, I like to get a fast layer against a Protoss that goes for this cannon expand, and then I try to get something like Mutalisks out, or Infestors. Usually Mutalisks, though, because Infestor drops are kind of hard to pull off, or they're just not useful in a lot of scenarios. But Mutalisks just completely bypass the fact that he has this many photon cannons. And I think that Arlyne was expecting to see a gateway back here. I think that if he had known that a gateway was not yet down, he definitely would have gone for a fast layer right into some Mutalisks. Because if you don't have a gateway when your opponent is like halfway through their layer, you're not going to have any type of preparation up in time unless you just completely over-cannon your back rocks, which isn't really worth it, because then your opponent can just switch into something like Broodlords or Ultralisks, and he'll just be so far ahead. I'm surprised he's not using these I think he's using these Zerglings mainly to scout and poke. I think he should be using these other 4 Zerglings to break down his third rocks, just because, I mean, as a Zerg, you want to be one base ahead of your Protoss opponent unless you're going for very infestor heavy play and you're trying to get that real cost effectiveness out of your units. But I'm not really going to argue with him on any of this play because he's not doing all that bad. We do have a Roach Warren up. He's waiting on that layer to get speed, I'm guessing. And then he's going to do a kind of strong try to Roach bust down this door. But I think that Alejandro's complete and utter over-preparation might be what saves him when this push comes. Because the 2-base Roach bust is a pretty strong push. Especially with those Zerglings, and if he gets a Baneling Nest to morph some of those Zerglings into Banelings, he might be able to take out this pack of cannons, these 3 cannons right here. Those cannons are very close to each other, and if he gets Banelings off on them, it might just be game over for Alejandro. He is moving up to 6 cannons. That is a lot of resources in cannons, but I think it's actually prudent because of the straight up amount of roaches that we see coming out. I mean, he has 76 supply, which is 12 roaches and 10 Zerglings. And he only has 36 workers, so if the Protoss can hold this off effectively, and I think if he really wanted to hold this off, he really needed either a Robo or, you know, some sentries, because this isn't gonna cut it. Just straight cannons isn't gonna be able to hold off this strong of a Roach push. He really needs those sentries for force fields. Because ideally, with 6 sentries, I think it is, you can permanently force field this ramp, which makes the Zerg come the long way around, and then you can limit as many roaches. And we have a Nidus Worm coming up right outside the base. I love this choice. This basically means that any sort of reinforcements are going to be instantaneous, because he can just run them right into the Nidus network that is right here, and that's going to be devastating for Alejandro, actually. That's a very nice play. I've seen a lot of people use Nidus Worms as kind of reinforcing things, but I think that this is something that hasn't really been used a whole lot in any sort of play, because even though they're fairly easy to snipe, if you have a really strong timing push going off, I don't know what your opponent could do to stop this Nidus Worm, unless he really overcommits. I think he should be sending this Void Ray over to snipe this Nidus Worm, but I'm just not sure if he even knows about the Nidus Worm. And this is going to be awful, awful damage to Alejandro, if not just absolutely winning the game for Arlyne. And this is what happens when your warp gate isn't done in 11 minutes. You get attacked by roaches and lose. I just don't know how else to describe this. He does have an Immortal, which is going to be able to devastate some of these units, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. The Void Ray is hard countering everything, but we have a Hydralisk Den coming out of Arlyne, and he's just keeping up with this constant reinforcements, and so even if these roaches get picked off, they have done their damage at this point. His opponent has 1 probe. Yeah, this game is this is a very, very bad situation for Alejandro, unless he can completely fight off these roaches with these Void Rays. He doesn't have enough money banked for another Void Ray. He doesn't really even have enough money banked for constant probe production. I think that as soon as Hydralisks come out, which they're on their way right now, it's going to be game over, because there's going to be nothing to be able to deal with those Hydralisks. Void Rays do not do especially well. Even 3 of them do not do especially well against even an equal number of Hydralisks. I think he really needs to be sniping this Nidus Worm. Yeah, he doesn't have enough for another worker. Yeah, as soon as these Void Rays go down, it's going to be game over. I expect Alejandro to leave this game at any point, and there we go. Alright guys, this was the first in the Minigame Madness series. Thank you, Arlyne, for this replay. That was actually some pretty beautiful Nidus play with that instant reinforcement. It kind of gives you the pseudo 4-gate kind of advantage on your opponent, where you can just bring in units right to his front door. And with the Zerg production, that's extremely powerful. So thank you, Arlyne, for this replay. If you guys want more Boisterous action, go check my channel out at youtube.com/user/boisteroussc2. And if you want any of your games casted of any length, because as soon as I get 3 or 4 of these shorter replays, I'm going to release them in a batch of mini games, or I might release a mini game on an off day that's not Monday, Wednesday, or Saturday. So send them in to boisteroussc2@gmail.com, and this is Boisterous signing out.